Well, what a difference a week makes, right? Weather-wise, was excited early on. I thought we'd be able to get out on the grass and experience some good move the ball stuff. Really excited to get practice 9 behind us, stay relatively healthy. Had a couple guys dinged up, and nothing should be catastrophic or anything for the short term. So really this next week is very important because we've got our 2 scrimmages out of the way. We can't do another one until the spring game on the 20th. So really a big week in front of us, just kind of correcting where we're at, continue to install, get a little bit of football IQ, situational football awareness. I really like some of the growth of our young players, especially the guys that just joined us in January, some of the new players that just came in January, some of the transfers really making some big steps. Some of the guys that made position changes continue to make steps forward. So really excited about our new coaches as well, to see Antonio and on defense, Charlie Bolin, and then on offense, obviously Thad and Dish, to see the impact they've made on the offensive and defense side of Bolin and Dish. And the special team just continues to be very impressive. I think our kids have really bought in what we're doing, made some change-ups, some things that are easy to see, some things that are a little bit different, but couldn't be more excited about where we're at. Offensively, I think continuing to grow, right? Like anytime you have transition, especially at the tailback and at the running back, or at the quarterback position, at center, those are the 3 main ball carriers for us. And then in the throw game, obviously you have the constant of Pat Bryant and Isaiah and Casey with Tip Ryman. That's kind of a nucleus that returns. So to have those other guys build around them, as well as a new offensive line, and defensively return the number of players we do up front, but the back end we've been trying to stress them and continue to build. So I like the growth out of there. So I'm really excited about where we're at and where we got a chance to go in the next 2 weeks.
Coach, seems like you got 3 guys taking second-team reps at quarterback. Is any of those 3 kind of stepped up and
Actually, we have 4 guys that are taking all kinds of reps with the 1s and 2s. I don't know what scrimmage you watched, but the one I watched, right? The kind of went into it. We got 4 guys. Obviously, 2 new transfers, Donovan Leary and Kirkland Michal. Really throughout the spring, through 9 practices, those 4 guys have really split the 1s and 2s. We rotated a number of guys through with the 1s and a number of guys through the 2s. We're trying to balance it up and even it out. Some guys did some good things. Luke maybe didn't have a good start today, finished up really strong. Donovan came in, was really pretty steady all the way through. John Paddock started off good, had a little lull, came back on the back end, and then Michal was kind of just a steady guy throughout. So the good news is 4 guys continue to battle themselves out, and we'll see where it goes.
How big is communication with your mid-year January enrollees? George talked about maybe emphasizing more positive because they've never been in this kind of scenario in an environment, and they don't know that they're supposed to be messing up right now.
Yeah, no, I've kind of kept stressing to our guys, like everybody's journey in spring football is kind of a unique time where there's so many differences between guys and the level of play they're at, right? Like you have Johnny and Keith and Isaiah and Julian and really Isaiah Williams, and those 5 guys are kind of a different level from others, right? And then now you throw in Casey Washington and Pat Bryant in the receiver room. You throw in Josh McCray and Reggie, who haven't played a lot of football, but they're definitely ahead of the other 3 running backs as far as time on the field and time on the grass. Defensively, Johnny and Keith played a lot, but now we got a bunch of guys who we're trying to get reps in around them. Seth on the outside linebacker room, and Gabe just for 1 year have more than everybody else. So it kind of just every position it's a little bit different. And I have been telling our coaches and our players, don't get frustrated that you're not at their level yet, right? Like, it's part of the process. Enjoy the journey. Don't try to skip to the end, and good things can happen.
So the secondary, it seems like you guys are kind of maybe starting to be able to whittle down where you want guys. How do you feel like the growth kind of been around the back end?
Yeah, this week was different from last week, and I think we'll make great changes this week. A guy that jumped out today, I thought Miles Scott continues to move forward. We moved him from a kind of a corner / nickel position to the middle of the field. Nicario Harper really flashed today on certain plays. TJ is another guy that's really continued to come from up in the perimeter. We got about 5 or 6 corners that have, Taz with obviously the most game experience, but T. Strain unfortunately got a little bit sick here in the last 48 hours, so he's a little limited today. But I just, been kind of stressing there, and let's just keep rolling guys through. Let's get as many reps, many valuable plays as we can, which is experience right now. Even though nothing this next week will be live scrimmage situation, the value of calling, communicating, aligning, reacting is really invaluable.
What has stood out about Xavier Scott and kind of his growth from where he was to maybe a bigger role now?
Xavier really, very fortunate, came to us through a recommendation of a couple buddies of mine. He was an under-recruited kid. It was during COVID. No one had touched him. We got a phone call. We had to manipulate an NCAA rule at the time, which allowed us to blue shirt him in the context of that, right? And it's been probably coming in from his class, one of the most, not surprised, but bonuses that we didn't expect coming in the door, right? He's a guy that last year played at a high level. Even you go look at the Michigan game, the volume that he played, Mississippi State, incredible competitor, really high football IQ, extremely athletic. He's changed his body, probably could play one of three positions for us. Really, really good football IQ and awareness that he talks like some kids have it but don't share it. But Xavier, speaks very, very confidently all the time, and I'm really excited about his growth for a guy that's got 3 years ahead of him here. It's a pretty cool thing to watch.
You had more recruits in here this weekend. I know that's been the big
Yeah.
this week. How's it going? How much easier is it now than supposedly a year ago when we first got here?
Twofold. Well, we've created a little bit more buzz about ourselves, which creates a little more buzz. We had players in today from really from coast to coast, and the thing about that, I think that takes a foreshadow for us to be able to communicate with them, talk to them, get them here. Obviously, we can't. We haven't had an official visit yet, so all these are unofficial visits, so they're paying for their own way to come up. But to have a kid that's maybe back for Easter break that travels to a private school, and maybe to have it's easy to, not easy, but to get Illinois kids here. We have kids from really all the border states around us here this week. Not just today. We have guys in all this week because Easter week, spring break. This is a busy time, so. A lot of credit to Pat Hamilton and our staff to kind of get those things lined up. Our coaches that have recruiting areas, but some of these guys are outliers too. Guys that we have had a couple portal guys in that we're allowed to visit because of the rules that are grad chancers. But recruiting is a day-to-day journey, and that every day is a new day.
Coach, we talked to Bart after the scrimmage last week, and he said he watched the film. There was a lot of things to work on with the O-line. Did you see some growth from one week to the next?
Our O-line especially, it's, you see Julian and Isaiah who got a lot of experience, right? And Jordan Slaughter to a certain extent. But then you have guys at the center position. I think Josh Kreutz has continued to be very impressive every day. His knowledge of the game, his football IQ, his acumen, his ability to communicate, a really tough competitor. He's really jumped out. Barlow's been a nice addition. And then actually T.J. McMillan has been a nice surprise as well to come in as a true freshman and do what he's done. And then at right tackle, I would say Geske, Josh, has been a guy that's really kind of shown up in a big way. I think he could play tackle. He probably has some guard value. Obviously, we have Des Schuster that's going to be coming in for us here into June, and that will be another guy added into our roster. We may have one more addition through the transfer portal. We have a couple scholarships available for us, so we're trying to determine where those players will come from, but also where they'll go. That'll sear our depth more than anything.
And how does Solo Turner look this spring?
Yeah.
I don't see too many sit-out transfers anymore. What did he gain from that year?
Well, so Solo actually was under appeal. We wanted to play him last year,
Sure.
but he didn't win the appeal. So Solo's story, his journey, obviously got an uncle that was a great person here and a great representative of Illinois. So he's been around us a long time. I think the thing that he brings to the table is very physical. He communicates very well. He's into it. There's nobody more intense. If I have a meeting at 6 a.m., he's in there at 5:45 a.m., sitting in that spot every time. He's just relentlessly preparing himself for when his moment comes. Out there today, I thought he showed up a couple times. He's a guy that has some unique skill sets, and that he's big enough to play in the box, but he has enough speed and athleticism to play a little bit removed. So kind of a unique guy that we're excited to find a role for.
What kind of differences have you seen in T-Rod just as he gets a second year?
T-Rod, for me, the growth that he had this winter was a great indication of what's coming. And I think this spring, he was our MVP last Tuesday or Thursday. Plays with his hands really well. Super high football intelligence. Very motivated. A guy that everything you ask him to do, like he's one of those kids, you better tell him exactly what you want because it's exactly what you're going to get, right? He really takes a lot of pride. But I think also to bring in Denzel right with him, to bring in a little competition there. RJ's been really good as well. And then we've been playing Sed inside as well at the nose position. So competition brings the best out of people, and I think T-Rod's feeling that competition.
I mean, Keith and Johnny coming back is big, but how important is one of those guys filling that role well?
From Rod 2 years ago to obviously Calvin this year, we've been able to play the last 2 years with a pretty sturdy nose, right? It's hard to block, a guy that brings size and value and speed. I think Calvin will be interested to see what happens to him because I think as you went back and watched last year's film, what he did at the nose position was a huge part of our success, especially early downs. He just really occupied that middle, made it hard for him to move, and gave offenses, I think, a lot of problems because you can't man him by himself. And if we can find that value again in someone else in this room right now, that'd be incredibly beneficial.
You mentioned a couple dings or bruises. Anything that would linger into fall camp?
No. The only thing that that isn't really. We have 4 guys. We got Zy Chrysler, Bryce Barnes, Matt Bailey, and somebody else. There's 4 guys, huh? Zeke, right? All 4 of those guys, I think, should be cleared when we start in June. Yeah, so there's nothing that would be into the fall.
Coach, the NFL draft is
Yeah.
fast approaching. What kind of, how does that visibility with your players help your program?
It's been overwhelming. Obviously, Spoon had the deal Wednesday that you guys were at. My phone literally has been blowing up the last 2 weeks. Obviously, a lot about Spoon, but I think he's kind of in the stratosphere now where people are jockeying and trying to figure out where he's going to be, and people don't want to tip their hat. But I literally get a call or a text. I would say 5 or 6 calls a day or a text asking me to reach out to him from the people I know. I would say in 32 NFL teams, I probably know somebody in that decision loop, either a GM, a couple of owners, a director of personnel, or a head coach that when they're spending that kind of money, when you start talking first, second round picks, especially where Spoon could go, they're not just doing a little bit of research, right? They're going to find out everything and anything they can to make sure the value, what they are going to attach to this pick will be. And, I would say Spoon obviously has ascended a bunch before the combine and after combine, and then I don't think Wednesday did anything but help him. Quan's continued to climb. I think Sid Brown has continued to I get a lot of calls on Sid. And now they're starting to do these 30 interviews where each squad gets 30 interviews that they can bring a guy to campus. And I think a lot of our guys are booked for the entire time frame they're allowed just because people are extremely intrigued with them. And then I got a call about D'Arcangelo, got a call about Pilstrom, right? So I'm starting to get these calls on guys that might be late round to first to free agent priority guys. And couldn't be more excited. It brings a lot of buzz for us. I'm going to go to the draft. I'm going to hop on a plane and hopefully go wherever our next guy is getting drafted and see that and capture the moment. I've had several first round picks, but I've never gone to the draft. It never used to dawn on me, right? Didn't even think about going to the draft. I remember there was 2 times when the NFL called me to try to get my players to go to the draft because they wanted to be those guys to be present, and it never clicked in my head, hey, coach, why don't you go to it? So for us in recruiting now, to capture that moment with that player or his people and celebrate that, obviously Spoon, Quan, Sid, Chase, those guys potentially could be, first, second, third round, all those guys, and it's fun to capture that moment.
You brought in 2 scholarship specialists with this class. How have they looked? Obviously we saw David.
Great question.
What's been the development?
Yeah, Dooley Declan is really impressive. Just his demeanor, his personality. Knew during recruiting he's a pretty serious kid. Mom and dad established that, and a local kid, right, that has done well, and he's been very impressive. Hit the ball extremely well out there today. Now he's a lefty, so it's a little different. You got a left-footed punter. When I was in the league, when I was with New England always wanted a left-footed punter because their ball just comes off their foot so much different. You can ask our returners, a left-footed punt is a completely different catch than a right-footed punt, just the way the ball comes off and spirals. And then I would just say, if there's been a guy that probably has jumped out of all the freshmen coming out, is David Alano. He's very confident, just kind of everyday approach, his demeanor, his personality. He kind of just rolls with it. And our guys, even when he goes out there and hits the ball, you hear our guys respond. So it's been great to bring the competition to the room, but also to see how well they've executed, and it's good for us in the future.